I just got done watching The Odyssey, but I also watched what's that movie called? Obsession? Okay, I guess I'll go why I like those movies. Obsession, the one thing I think they did, the person did really good with is they really played with the eyes. I like that. And the pacing's great. It's just a good movie. There's like one hiccup for me, but that's more or less of a. Is that a legitimate reasoning? But it's basically the when he's all the chick's fucking psycho, and you know what, I want to also talk about how dark that is. If you knew how they did that so cool. I think they brought that idea to life. No, not that they I don't know, because I'm not really into scary movies, and I haven't, I'm just well versed in like this kind of stuff, like these like superstition movies. No, not superstition, I guess a paranormal, I guess, or what would you call that? Where you mess with I think magic, not magic, but something like that. So I don't know how in other movies if that was brought to life. No, with that was that feeling of that dilemma of not dilemma that okay, either way I'm gonna say basically he calls a number, and the lady who he made the wish toward to fall in love with him, she I guess is trapped in this other dimension, or trapped inside his body, where the demon or whatever it's inside of her body is suppressing, or just like I'm saying, I don't know exactly where she's at. She could be in there just trapped in her body, but the demon inside is taking over, or whatever it is. But that when he called that person and she started screaming because fucking freaking out, whatever, that's like horrible to whatever that person's at. And that the points where we're all saying she gains control back of her body, and then she's freaking out because now she's back. I think that's a really cool thing to realize how fucked up that is, how selfish that is for him for what he did to her. How crazy that even though this person is like the lady's fucking horrible, but you're like that's not her, but now I'm saying that's not her, but that's not even not her fault because of not really her fault, but it's like the actions that have preceded everything. When the demon or whatever took control, and she had to be left with that as soon as she wakes up, and she had to be left with that. It's just like how selfish, how narrow-minded. You didn't even think that far ahead. You just put this person in such a bad space, and it's just like fuck. I think that's a cool thing. When I felt when I was watching, I'm like, wow, you're. It's not like he knew, but at some point, you know, it's a movie, but he would never guess that would actually happen, and it happened, and that's like, you know, freaking him out. And what he didn't expect it to happen, and it happened, and stuff like that. One of my gripe is when you know, when he's freaking out because she's crazy and stuff like that. When they're like, you know, saying, you know, I guess like, you sure about this? Are you sure they whatever? He's like, he gets offended by that. Like, if she won't like him if there wasn't an issue where they felt she had an issue, and it's like, you're terrified of this person. You know there's an issue. Then all of a sudden when they bring it up, you're like defensive about it, which makes sense in this situation. It could make sense, but also it just, you know, I guess you know, that the funny idea about this too is infatuation and obsession, and how you could discern the two from this. Infatuation, at first it felt like he was obsessed with her, and obviously she wasn't. She was mutual. She felt mutual, but for him, he was obsessed with her. And then when she became obsessed with him because of the magic shit, he realized he wasn't obsessed with her. He was infatuated with her. But then again, it could be the case. No, because if he was really obsessed with her, then that they would be, I guess, perfect for each other. You could. That's why I feel like you could discern if that magic thing wasn't right there, and you guys like, oh, he was infatuated with her but she was obsessed with him and stuff like that. I thought that was cool. As I mentioned, I like the idea of the whole time I'm thinking that was fucked up from him. There's a lot of good things. There's that one little hiccup, but then again, it could be a reasonable reaction if, you know, if the circumstances wasn't like this and whatever, with that drastic, you know, with the whole fucking demon shit. But I think the pacing is really good. There's a lot of things that just like was phenomenal about it. And okay, so I watched the Odyssey. One, because I keep hearing about the Elliot Page, I think her name is Elliot Page. Because Elliot Page, yeah, because she's a trend. Yeah, she's a trend. Yeah, I think so. And the different colored people in there and stuff like that, and the whole that with that was like that as like, it's a mythology. So if it's a mythology, why you think they're beholden to any you know, norms of it? I guess it'd be like they were all white or Greek or whatever. When it's a mythology, you think there's a fucking org in real life? You think there was a fucking gods who were playing, you know, fucking recall? No, but you're upset by trans person and different colored people, but you're not. It just felt. It's like. You're so fucking, like, you're so fucking, here I go both ways. I go no, not like that. I mean, I go both ways in the sense that I could see the side of, hey, you're overdoing it, like with The Last of Us. Not, I didn't really have a problem with The Last of Us. It wasn't really a problem with number two. It wasn't necessarily the problem of them. There was that. It was more or less of the gameplay. But I could go both ways with that. I could see how that could be an issue, and how that could be not an issue. And this is like when watching it, it was not an issue. The only reason why it would be an issue is because you're narrow minded. There was this is a mythology. This isn't real life. I understand if it was real life, then fuck yeah, maybe there was recall, but maybe in the mythology, like there's some shit that they white, like Jesus Christ, I think if anything, like the Bible has been whitewashed. If anything, if it was like legit, Jesus might not have been white. Jesus might have been some brown person, but nobody fucking cares about that because white people whitewash that shit. So what if the case is the same thing with this? They whitewashed it because I have no clue of the Odyssey. I just heard about it. What they talked about is the Illidan. I think they say the Illidan is first only because of how it's structured. Then the Odyssey came after. This is the books and of Homer. They don't really know. They don't really know the full 10 years. I guess the 10 years of Troy. They only know those certain amount because within those 10 years, those were all forgotten. I think they were told and never written down until somebody started writing them down or some shit like that. So it's like whoever got the recall, they could have just whitewashed the shit out of it, just like they did with the Bible. And it's like, but you're crying over some shit that's a mythology that has fucking orcs, that has this fucking, all this, like these gods. It just, that point, that it just, sometimes you just let your stupidity get in the way of enjoying something just to enjoy. As I said, I could go both ways. I could see why that could be an issue, and could see why it could not be an issue. And in this case, there's no issue. There's no issue. I don't really see an issue with the colors, different colors, and fucking Elliot Page. There was really no issue. The only way is issue because you already have that in your mind, and then you're letting it trigger you. But that's my recall. The thing. Okay, so it's how long is it? It's a fucking, because I know I was in there like fucking forever, like a 3-hour movie or some shit like that. Odyssey time. 2 hours and 52 minutes, nearly 3 hours. Pacing is good for being nearly 3 hours. The pacing, maybe there was some minor recall, but the pacing is good, and that's, when you had the Odyssey for 2 hours and 52 and Obsession 1 hour and 49 minutes, basically half, well not half, but close to half to three, like 2/3 of it being half of with that's incredible for a movie to do that, because this is another thing I'm going to be talking about is Hail Mary, Project Hail Mary, where it's Project Hail Mary, movie time, 2 hours and 36 minutes. There were Odyssey. There were, for me, as I was watching it, there was, yes, it's long and that could be draining, but the pacing for me, I don't. There was not a point where I was like, where Project Hail Mary, there's instances where it felt like it was dragging, and honestly, I believe there wasn't not a single point where I was like, let's carry it on. Which I'm gonna say that is phenomenal. A nearly 3 hour movie, and he was able to do that and make it entertaining while dragging on something that probably wasn't necessary to be dragged on, or if it did, but then done it in the right way. So I applaud Odyssey for being 3 hours long and the pacing being phenomenal. Not phenomenal, but it was great that you wouldn't be like where I would say Project Hail Mary. You'll find some dragging parts of the movie where you're like, okay, let's get this going. Here, it wasn't like that. There was this cool thing, where they said, he told his people not to eat the cattle and they're not gonna die, and it's like, yes, but they told you that was gonna happen, and he's like, yeah, but those are my men and I led them, and the lady's like, you think you really think your weak actions or whatever overpowers the gods? And for me, it felt like it kind of said like even this was pre-planned, which obviously I think in that's the case in that folklore, or I mean in that mythology. The movie's good. I don't think it's fantastic. It's good, and I would say when I mentioned you allow dumb things, and you allow dumb things in movies to progress the plot, and at the end, basically, he's like going against a fucking an army by himself, and it just looks stupid because you could see people running in circles. No, if you notice, you start noticing them running in circles. When you're like, just jump on this motherfucker, you know what I'm saying? But you allow dumb things to let the story progress. You allow for the story to progress. So in this case, it's a perfect example of that's okay for dumb things to happen like that. Because if you put logic, then the plot will be too quick, or the plot, so there won't be building up tension. There won't be all these other things you need for this to have this, finish or this excitement or whatever. Whereas, I would talk about Disclosure Day. It has so many dumb things and so many weak call that it didn't. You at some point you gotta be like you're just. This is like stupid. This is fucking stupid. So that's what I like about Odyssey. I think not that dumb thing, but it's a great movie. I don't think it's like, oh my god, it's the best thing. No, I just think it's a great movie. And that's my thing. Sorry, I cut off because I had to recall. But I think that's what. Okay, so that's what I liked about Obsession. I liked about Odyssey, and I think more or less I want to. I guess in this part I would like to do I guess my ranking, but it's like if I had to pick out of the three movies, Hail Mary Project, Project Hail Mary, Obsession, and the Odyssey, because I think these are great movies, but they don't really separate each other that much. They separate each other in some sense, whereas in honestly, the only one I don't think that really separates itself is the Odyssey. Um, but I think Obsession does that. To a degree. I think don't. So if I would have to say one, two, three, what to watch, I think it would be third place would be um, the Odyssey. What takes the second spot? I believe it would be Project Hail Mary, just because of that recall. But I think what it does in the storytelling and connecting the dots and doing all that is phenomenal, and I think that could surpass that. So it could still be number one, and I think Obsession it seems like a tightly knit movie that is great, and at least I don't see any issues with it. Maybe it could be, that part where he's like all saying defensive out of nowhere, but for me, I don't see a real issue with that movie. I think it's tightly knitted, and it's a great movie, tightly knitted, great movie. I think Project Hail Mary is a phenomenal movie, but there is lulls, and I think the reason why I take those maybe have issue with it now is because with what Christopher Nolan, the Odyssey, was able to do for 3 hours. And obviously you could only hope to be able to pace that well in a movie, especially that long. And you just have to be, because he's a fucking vet. I'm not sure about this person, whoever created and written Recall, but I know it's a book, but at the same time you have to adapt Recall, like the what's the movie, I Am Legend. That from between that book to the movie, it's not vastly different. It's kind of very different because I read I think an audiobook the book, and there's a lot of different things. It's like the vampire. He was fantasizing over a vampire, not a mannequin, and there's some cool things about it. But so no matter what, you still have to adapt it to the screen, and you still have to make everything in a way that could be fitting. And I think because of RC seeing that, it made it for me, it kind of like, okay, you made a phenomenal movie, but you made some. It's not like it's a bad thing, because it's like the movie is fucking phenomenal, but it could be just. It could have been a necessary thing, but just whatever. That's why I think it probably is Obsession, then it's Project Hail Mary, and then it's the Odyssey, because I don't really think the Odyssey, it's a great movie. It's the pacing's great. It just isn't better than Project Hail Mary, and it isn't better than Obsession. And also because that's the only thing I like. I didn't really like the scary part. so sometimes I had I was like covering my ears and shit. But I think that's if you were to watch it, and if yeah, I think that's Obsession, Project Hail Mary, and The Odyssey. The only one I would say, the Odyssey doesn't make anything unique or anything like, whereas Obsession was like that, and Project Hammer, the way it told a story and stuff like that. Not necessarily that being unique, but being a like piecing it together so amazingly. And yeah, I like those movies. All those movies are phenomenal, and I think 1 and 2, they're tight. They're tight. There's a tight race. You could go Project Hail Mary. You could go Obsession. For me personally, Obsession does more than with Project Hail Mary. Project Hail Mary is phenomenally written. Just there's points in there where it's like, okay, we need to speed this shit up. And Odyssey just doesn't do anything special, and that there's a gap right there. But that gap isn't so large that I'm saying you wouldn't I wouldn't say I would put it over any of those two. Whereas I would have put it over Hail Mary over Obsession, or Obsession over Hail Mary. But it's enough where it's in the conversation. So it's like the MVP race. There's 1, 2, 3, then there's like 4, 5, 6. It's 4, 5, 6. It's not 1, 2, 3. It's like 4, 5, 6. But I watched Odyssey. I liked it a lot. I don't think it did anything great or unique or fun or just something that was weird. But it was a great movie, and yeah, that's it.